Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Talks with Tori, the podcast. Since it's episode 1, I just wanted to share a little bit of my heart behind this podcast, why we are starting a new form of content in general. I'm not sure if you've been following me since like back in 2020, but I used to do Talks with Tori over on Instagram Lives and I loved them. But for some reason, in the midst of the move and building the house and having a baby, they fell off. And I was rocking Micah not too long ago, and I felt like the Lord was telling me to bring back Talks with Tori, but in a new way, in a podcast version, and having my friends on with me. I feel like I have been so incredibly blessed with so many women of wisdom, like rich wisdom in my life, that I just know these conversations will bless you, inspire you, encourage you. And my prayer is that you feel like you are in the room with us, or that you're just like low-key watching a FaceTime between friends where we're talking about life in all aspects and our journey of faith and all of it, right? But in a very real, conversational, not overly professional manner. Like, I just want this to feel like a girl chat, like you're talking to your girlfriend about what you're going through and she's offering you encouragement through it. So that is my heart, and I hope that you're as excited as I am. Like, I am so excited, and especially excited for this episode because my girlfriend Brittany Lutz, she's going to be the first guest. She is literally an angel on earth. She is a wife, she is a mother, and she is a friend, but I also look at her as like a mentor in my life. Just journeying through different seasons of life with her, the way that she walks through hardship with the Lord, it just is so revealing of her intimacy with the Lord. And it is a beautiful thing to witness. Every single time I'm in her presence, I leave encouraged, inspired, and motivated to deepen my relationship with the Lord. And I know that you will feel the same way after hearing from her. I'm also on these podcasts going to be sharing like a little bit of what God's been teaching me before we jump into the conversation. But since today's the first episode, I just wanted to share a little bit of the why behind the podcast. So anyways, I hope y'all are excited, and we are just going to go ahead and jump on in to the conversation with Brittany. Preface, Brittany and I were low-key talking and having just a little chit-chat prior, and then we were like, wait, we just need to have this conversation on the podcast. First and foremost, we are both very casual today. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm pretty sure I have milk, spit, and baby food on my shirt right now. And we were just talking about
Mama uniform.
Yes, we wish that we could be that mom who's like in the whimsical, beautiful dress every day.
Yes, love it.
But it just does not always happen. Actually, it only happens on a very rare occasion. But you were saying something about TikTok. What is it called?
Okay, so I'm probably so late to this, by the way. I heard about it like a month or two ago. Also, you might be covered in spit up and stuff, but I'm breaking every rule of like what you should wear on camera, like no patterns, no this, and I'm like in a full checkerboard. This is my F1. You can tell Chad this is my F1 uniform. I have not watched a single race. However, I did start F1 on Netflix, and have you guys watched that?
That's what got us into the entire situation. So I'm like, is that show. Mm-hmm.
Is it Saturdays and Sunday mornings that the races are on? Or is it just like
Friday,
weekends, right? Or does it depend?
It's Friday practice, multiple practices.
It's
Saturday qualifying, and then it is Sunday
learned
the
about
race.
Qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Okay, yes. So I haven't gotten to the weekend thing yet, but I just started season 2, and I kind of have like a couple favorites and a few that I'm like,
wait,
and
who's
I'm
your
also
favorite?
A few years back. Is his name Carlos? He's like tall, skinny, from Spain. He seems very sweet. He like wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so I'm like the underdog. Like,
yes, you love a good underdog story.
Because they're like, oh, we're gonna take this guy over Hiiii because he's better, even though he like wasn't better, but he did come with a rich father. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So that being said, I am the checkered flag today. But
I love it.
no, but what we were talking about before that I brought up, and I don't know if anyone's heard of this. I'm actually not on TikTok.
I'm not either.
But I'm aging.
No,
I'm
not
aging
either.
myself.
We're in it together.
I don't have time for another. When Threads came out, I was like, love the idea.
Yep.
But
I
like,
was on it for a solid 24 hours. And then I was like,
I think
yeah, this is overwhelming to me.
If you either like have the time to put into it, or you have like a social media team that can take your thoughts and ideas and then just branch it, totally. But I'm like, I don't have any of that. So like, again, I'm
also visual.
Anyway.
And so for me, it's like, I like pictures, I like videos. And so I think I was just overwhelmed by the amount of words. And I'm like, I can't process all of this right now. Like too many strands of thought. And I also 100%. Have a baby who's like crawling all over the place now. And so I just don't, I don't have the time. But anyways, okay, what is this type of mom called?
So it's apparently it is a trend, or was a trend. People are going to be like, Brittany, you were a year late to this. That's okay.
I don't even know the trend.
So it's a trad wife. And I'm like, what the heck is a trad wife? I thought it was like, I didn't know what that was.
I'm a Chad's wife.
You're a Chad's wife. But trad wife is short for traditional wife. So it's like this trend on TikTok, or was on TikTok, of like what we were just talking about, the flowy. Think of traditional and like the most cookie cutter, like whatever the word I'm looking for.
Lives on a farm and
stereotypical way. Yes. Making like your sourdough starter, homeschooling the kids, whimsical dresses, minimal to no makeup, all those things.
Right.
And that is this trend within like the younger generation, which I think is amazing.
I love it.
Amazing. Because how incredible that now in order to be rebellious, it's like, I'm going to love Jesus. I'm going to stay married. I'm going to raise my kids. I'm not going to I'm not going to, depend on government assistance or any government facility. But like, it's me and my house. We serve the Lord. Like,
we're actually
love it.
curious. Yeah, we don't believe everything we hear. Okay.
Exactly. I'm going to think for myself. What a concept. So anyways.
So interesting.
But yeah. So I learned what a trad wife was, aka just a traditional wife. But we gotta like shorten it because we're cool and hip in 2023. But
I will say, anyway, I aspire to that in a way, right? Where I'm like,
in a way,
man, I would love in some season of my life, to be on some land, to have some chickens, to do the whole.
I get the romance of it,
like but then there's also like I'm me. Right. And
I was going to say there's also who God called you to be, which I think we should talk about, because it's like this is like comparison almost and not like in a way that maybe we don't talk about, which is like God is calling people to live their life in their way. And it's attractive because I don't know about you, but there's nothing more attractive than watching someone walk in their God-given identity. Like this is who God created them to be. And it's beautiful. And then sometimes we want to like try it on, right? Because it looks so good on them.
I'm like, but that length,
and then it's like
great.
It doesn't fit, And so it's funny because I find with myself, and the reason why I say this, and I want to know if you've ever had this or if it's just me.
I'm sure I have.
And maybe because I am like a little older and it's like social media. I didn't grow up with it. And so, it kind of, it came a little later. So maybe I just don't navigate it as well. I think I do for the most part. Like my goal is always, I want to use social media. I don't want it to use me or like the enemy to use it to get to me. But I gotta say, when I see kind of the other people operating in when they're momming in a certain way, whether it's the influencer mom that has all the hacks and all the things and the snacks, or it's on the other end where it's like, we do all natural organic. Sometimes I feel like I'm somewhere floating in the middle.
Same.
And it kind of feels like I feel sometimes inadequate. And I know that that's not from God, but sometimes I'm like, dang, is there room for just someone in the middle? Because like this is beautiful and that's super. I don't even know what you would call it. Like one end it's beautiful, one end it's productive.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm just somewhere in the center. Like, is there anyone like me? Or I don't know.
And I think too, just in the space of social media, there's so many opinions, right? And so I think sometimes it's really hard. But I feel like we were talking about this the other day. It's like that comparison trap. And I was listening to this sermon the other day and it really inspired me because he was talking about how the only place that comparison can live in a healthy way is on the altar. And I was like, wait, what do you mean by that? And he was saying, if you can look at someone and say, I can see Jesus on their life so beautifully, and I desire some of that. Like I want some of that. And
Yeah.
it just makes you compare your intimacy with the Lord where it draws you
Yeah.
into his presence.
Totally.
Then it's
Yep.
like, okay, well that's a beautiful comparison if it's drawing you into his presence.
Yeah.
But as soon as you take comparison off the altar, then the
Yep.
focus changes from Jesus to things.
So good.
And then
Yep.
I also think that it's like
So good.
we're comparing what Jesus is doing or giving to someone
Yep.
else, and we're placing it on our life. Like, well, if Jesus
Totally.
loved me, then wouldn't he do or give me what he's
Yep.
giving her? And it's like,
Yep.
wait, no. Funny enough, I heard this on your podcast the other day as I was driving to the grocery store. And you were talking about comparison. And I was like, this line was so fire. It was comparison cripples your calling. And
I think that was from I feel like
it was
that was
a
from
devotional.
a
Yes,
devotional.
you
So
were
I don't
you were
think I can
reading the
take credit
devotional.
for it. But yeah, wasn't that so good? That was like highlighted, underlined, a box, or wasn't that so good?
It was so good, and it was so timely for me. And for some reason, I really that week was struggling with comparison in a way that I never really have dealt with before. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord, what is going on here? Like, I feel like I
Yeah.
genuinely am one of those women who, like, without a doubt, like celebrates other women in the kingdom.
You do well. Yeah.
I like feel like it's something I do well. And then that week I was like, wait, what is going on, Lord? Like, why
I get it.
am I doing this? Like, this is not a good
Yeah.
feeling. This is not leading to any type of fruition in my life, right? Because I wasn't,
Yeah.
but it happens in the church so often. Like, it happens in
So
Christian
often.
communities so often.
Yes.
And it
Yep.
does. And like, man, it made me question, do I even want to launch this podcast? You know, like there's so many other women that are doing similar things. Like, is there a place for me? And it's like the Lord had to like hammer it into my brain about focusing on the fact that like we are all so unique with unique experiences, and the Lord will draw who he wants to draw in, you know, to himself,
Yeah.
and he'll
Yeah.
use you because your story is going to impact someone else that I could never impact, right? Like
Yeah.
you've
100%.
had such insane experiences in your life that I could never speak into because like I haven't walked your journey, right? And so
Same. I never did pageants, and that's a whole world and lifestyle. But it's true. You know what I
yes,
mean? Like
yeah.
it's just
I forget that I
two
lived that
different
life.
things.
Like that feels
Isn't
so
it so
foreign
funny
to
how
me.
you like look back and you're like, I know that was me, but like that wasn't me in a way, right? Like they can coexist
Yes.
where you're like, that was me, like that was still that was this shell, but my soul, like everything about me is
Yes.
different. And thank Jesus that we can be different.
Brittany, have you ever looked at like old photos of yourself when you were not in a good place with the Lord and you physically look different?
100%. Well, and have you ever seen people? Because I won't name names, but maybe a couple that you would know too. But there are some people, and even celebrities, where it's like they come on the scene and they're beautiful,
Yes.
whether it's aesthetically or it's their spirit or that it factor. Because back in the day, you had to have the it factor to like be anywhere.
Yeah.
And then you see them go through things, whether it's like relational, or you just see them open themselves up to the world, right?
Yep.
They're like, oh, I now identify as all these things. And it's like what they're doing is they're muddying that pure water by opening, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's by opening themselves up to everything. And it's like they were there's one person in particular I'm thinking of where I'm like,
So
I
pure.
thought she was beautiful,
Yeah.
like stunning, just so pretty in all the ways.
Yeah.
And now it's like you just said, physically,
Yeah.
and it's not an age thing. It's like physically, they are different looking.
Yes.
Which and I don't know if you've ever seen, you know, or if anyone's ever seen like wild videos of manifestations and things like that. But when you invite
other
darkness
things
into your life, we'll say, or open yourself up, like it will inhabit you, and it will change literally your actual look. It's so wild. It's so wild.
I was talking to my friend Kaylee about it the other day, and we literally were scrolling on our phone, and gosh, I hope these photos never surface of me. Lord bless it. But college,
we all have those little photos.
College Tori. I mean, like even just normal photos, right? Like with my friends, it's like I literally don't look the same. Like you would see that person and be like, that's not Tori. Like that doesn't even look like you. And I just feel like when you are in God's presence, you carry so much
Yes.
more like light and joy. And it's like you can see it in your
Yes.
eyes. And I think that was the
Yes.
big thing. It was like, okay, I can
Yep.
smile with my eyes now. Like I felt like my eyes just looked dark.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, because I was in a dark season. Like literally I was in a dark season.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That just reminded me. I was reading this verse the other day in scripture, and it was like sandwiched in between two other verses that I like know so well, have heard so many times. And then it was like I had never realized or like read this verse before. Gosh, I wish I could just like pull it out and quote it. But it was talking about how the light in your eyes will bring light to your entire body. But if there is no light, you don't even know how dark, like, or how deep the darkness is in
Yes,
you.
I think I know what you're talking about. Oh, I have the chills. I think I wish I had my Bible right in front of
Same.
me. I
I'm
should
like,
have been prepared.
dang it.
Dang.
Oh,
But that
yes.
also, just that little like knowing,
Mhm.
you guys, you got to get around good people and good friends.
Yeah.
Like how often this is like just throwing it out there, not even a challenge, but like how often are you speaking to your friends and it's like, I wish we had our Bible.
Literally.
Like those are the people you got to get around. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's just because, and you know what? I'm just going to segue for 1 second because you were talking a minute ago about comparison, but back in the day, pre-kids, I used to model and do commercials. And so I'd get a
Forever
casting and it was
Rocher.
always, Ferrero Rocher.
I see it
man, that thing has
every Christmas.
they've literally for 5 years, they have re-upped it. And sometimes for Valentine's Day. Do you know how, well, I'm not going to talk about it. That has been a blessing from
We
the Lord. The amount of money
love
that one
residuals.
spot has made.
Yes.
Oh, we love it. Or just brand new buyout.
Yes.
But yes. But what I was going to say is on the casting, it'll be like, this is what we're looking for, description, whatever. And always it was like aspirational. That was like a key like word, aspirational.
Mhm.
And I remember one time the Lord I was like, something didn't sit well about that.
Mhm.
I'm like, but it's not bad to aspire to things, right? Like that's like your drive and your motivation. But then I realized like there's a difference between like aspiration and inspiration when it comes to people.
Yeah.
Aspiration is like you'll never really attain it. It's like you're aspiring to something, but like we were talking about, if it's what God has put on their life to carry, you
won't
can
carry it.
aspire all you want, and they are aspirational.
Yeah.
But you're someone who is very inspirational and that you have all of that, and I aspire, but it's what it is it takes a little detour into inspire, because you inspire me to like get in the word. It's not like, oh, I need to do and be and live your way, but it's like, oh my gosh, if God's revealing that to Tori, like, what will you reveal to me, And so I just want to like affirm in you that that's one of my favorite things about you and about our friendship is that it's not, I never, ever, ever, you complimented me on this the other day, but I feel the same way, which is I never leave you and I'm like, oh, I feel terrible, or I feel like I'm lacking in any way. Like I feel overflowing because you poured into me and I'm like, I want to go spend time with Jesus. So that's my thing. Get friends like that.
Same way. I feel the same way. I literally say this all the time. I feel like a broken record when it comes to Brittany, but I just feel like this is going to happen. I'm going to enter the gates of heaven. I'm going to meet my Lord and Savior. It is going to be the most beautiful day of my life. And then I'm going to ask him, okay, Lord, was Brittany an angel in disguise?
You say that so much, and I just,
yes.
Not true. No. Ask my husband, because I've had some less than stellar moments, and ask my family, because they had to deal with like you were talking about the dark Tori. I have a dark Brittany that was longer than I'd like it to be. So ask them; they'll be like, "No, there was no angel in that." But
well,
God
we're all human, and praise the Lord for new mercies every single morning, because your girl needs them too. My goodness. And speaking of, I was going to ask you this because there's so many facets to, like, we met. I think I was actually only engaged when we met. I'm not fully sure, but I just feel like
I'm pretty sure you guys were engaged, but not. I know you weren't married, because I feel like it's the first time we met at the beach.
Oh, then we weren't even engaged.
Do you remember
yet.
that?
Yes. Okay.
I feel like you had just gotten here.
Yes.
Maybe even that week. I feel like
it was. I mean, okay.
I just thought of that right now. I haven't thought about that day in a long time, but
this is how crazy my LA story is, and I've shared it a couple times, but I feel so insanely blessed by my time in LA. So moved there, had met two girls while I was out visiting Chad, but then moved in, met my like bestie Chelsea, and then it was the next week. Kristen Dalton Wolf, she was a former Miss USA. I had followed her for years. Talk about like someone who inspired me. I was going through a very dark season where I was going through a bad breakup. And at the time, like my dad had just left the country. And so I was just like a wreck. And she had just come out with her devotional. And that was right when I had watched the movie The War Room, which if you know me, you know it's my favorite movie.
You were like, we can't be friends if you haven't watched that.
Yes, it's so, like a prereq.
We watched it, and now Kellen and I watch it all the time.
Chad and I will go back if we like have a crazy like argument or something. We'll be like, we need to watch The War Room again and remember that
get
like
fired up exactly
who the real enemy is here.
Yeah.
But yes, so she messaged me. Okay, wait, I missed that. So back in the day. Yeah, I was going through the dark time. I was reading her devotional. I watched The War Room. So I was like just starting to like really dig deep in strategic prayer. And I would like rip out some of the pages of her devotional and literally like pin them on the wall. It was in my bathroom in my apartment at college. And I remember I posted.
Have you told her this?
I think I did. I think I have.
Oh, I love her. Anyway,
she's the best. I need to have her on the podcast for sure. Actually, I texted her, so hopefully we will get it scheduled soon. Planning with moms is like a whole nother journey.
The dynamics and the schedules are
You know, it means a whole nother layer sometimes when it's like we can coordinate as moms. We're like, all right, Lord, you're gonna make this happen. But she messaged me when I got out to. Wait, I keep messing up the story, y'all. Okay, rewind. Okay. I posted on Instagram about her devotional and I remember she reposted it and I had one of those like fangirl moments where I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, she knows my name. Wow. And then I guess she started following me. So the week I moved out to LA, she messaged me and was like, girl, did you move to LA? So again, I am like, stop it right now. Yeah. She knows that she knows I exist and she knows that I live in her city. And then she invited me to the beach so she has a women's ministry and her husband has a men's ministry and they were having this big beach gathering. And so
co-ed thing. Yeah.
I grabbed Chelsea. I'm like, we're going. And we went, we met Kristen. And then she invited us into this small group that was so insanely life-giving. And I mean, it like forever marked my life, you know? And it's like, there were so many women of wisdom and we met every Wednesday and it was, every Thursday. And it was just the highlight of my week. Like I remember just being so excited every week to go. And so, I don't remember where I was going with that, but.
Maybe I don't know either. Oh, I don't know. You were saying like we met when you were married or engaged, but it was so good.
Yes. So we met back before Chad and I got engaged. So we've seen each other through different seasons where it's like, okay, engagement, newly married, newly parents. We walked through, your loss. Like there's so much that we've walked through. But I also just wanted to ask you, like outside of wife and mother, like, how are you right now? Like, because I feel like there's a difference when people ask me, like, okay, well, what aspect of my life are you asking about 100%. In regards to like how I'm doing?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked this because this is something, it's not something I would have thought of had you been like, what's God teaching you right now? Or what is he showing you? But you like bringing this up really is like, yes, this is one of the biggest things. I actually had a call with my mentor who I love. If you are a young woman, even an older woman, it doesn't matter, get a mentor in your life because there is something about the wisdom, like peer and going through this, the same season at the same time is amazing because someone can relate in real time to what you're going through. That's powerful. But someone who has been there,
who's walked it out.
They have wisdom because there's some things that just time. You can't, there's no substitute for time.
100%.
An 18-year-old can go to hell and back and have so much more wisdom than maybe a 40-year-old, but the 40-year-old has more like just day to day. I've been here longer. You know, it's just,
Right.
it's different. So
Yeah.
we need all types of people. But
Agreed.
I was really struggling because, like you said, what aspect of my life?
Mhm.
The way I think is I'm very much like a categories person. And so for me, it's like there's this category, and like it's just the way I see things and information.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I have wife, I have mom, I have this, I have that.
Right.
You know, even like I have the laundry doer, I have the like
Mhm.
there's or housekeeping,
Right.
the cook, like I have all these things and all these hats. And there was a day that I was like, I texted her, I'm like, hey, can I talk to you? Like, I need a little wisdom
Mhm.
because what I was really struggling with was jumping back and forth between hats because I'm
Mhm.
also just my personality and um I am very all or nothing. I don't do well. It's not that I'm not good at multitasking. I totally can, but it's hard for me to pour my heart out and then
Right.
reel it back in to pour it out into something else.
Yeah.
So when it's like Kellen and I's quiet time at night and we've like ordered food or we're watching a show, like I'm fully there.
Yeah.
If I'm with the kids and I'm making them food, like I'm fully mom and it's like a full blown performance because I want
Yeah.
them to smile and
Yes.
but it's hard for me to jump from like if I'm watching the show with
Mhm.
Kellen and then someone cries and I'm like, oh, like
Yeah.
get to mom mode and
Yeah.
then run up there and comfort them as mom. Like for some reason that was challenging for me.
It's so
And
challenging.
so
It's so challenging.
I asked her and I'm like, hey, like you're super much. She has 7 kids. They all
Wow.
love Jesus. Her older ones
Incredible.
3 of them just got married like within like weeks of each other.
Wow.
And then they go all the way down to 13, I think. And I was like,
How
how
do
do
you
I
do
do it?
it?
Like you and Brian
Yeah.
are amazing. You have the best marriage. Like I know
Wow.
you've been through this and you did it with way more kids. Like, oh, help me.
Yes.
And her whole thing and her advice was so simple.
We love
And it is
simple.
not my default, so I'm still working it out. It's not like, oh, the light switch kind of flipped, but now I have to
Practice
rewire
it.
my brain,
Mhm. Yeah.
And her whole advice was instead of looking at it as like flowing in and out of all these different places, like that's all in your own might.
Mm.
If you, whatever that means to you, make sure you get filled up by the Lord and you will find that you'll just flow into each of those versus having to kind of do it in your own power, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And it just made sense to me. Now, that
Yeah.
being said, I still have moments where I'm like frustrated. I'm like, sorry, Lord.
Yeah.
But to be
We're
honest,
human.
like I'm not like I'm not necessarily like making the time for the Lord that I should.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not making any time. I mean, I still have my time every day, but there are
Yeah.
some days or some nights the night before where I really feel him like, hey, if I asked you to get
Oh,
up at 5
man.
tomorrow,
Mhm.
even if Kason and Ash and my kids, even if they wake up in the night, even if you don't get
Yeah.
adequate sleep, like, will you meet me here tomorrow morning?
Yep.
And to be honest, that's what I'm working on
Yeah.
because when you're a mom, you get tired. Or if you're a student, like it depends what
I'm
season of
never
life you're
really
in.
not tired. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest.
I'm
I'm kind of like at a
resting.
constant. I'm a little tired. I could like use a coffee at all point. Like I literally will
Yeah.
count down like, okay,
Yeah.
1 more hour until it's acceptable for me to have another cup of coffee. That's my day.
Yeah, it's just, and that's just the season that we're in. And
Yes.
it's funny because I'll see some people that I feel like are a little kind of judgmental is the right way, but
Mhm.
just like a little bit, rely on the Lord. I'm
Yeah.
like, I am, like, I'm doing
trying.
that. But I also want to be realistic about the season I'm in because
Yeah.
sometimes I'll get frustrated with myself that I'm not hitting all these marks because I'm also very achievement oriented.
Same.
And
Mhm.
God will like have to zoom me out 35,000 feet to look at my life and be like, I gave you this to steward.
Yep.
And anything on top of that is
Bonus.
like a bonus, and I'll give you the
Mhm.
grace and the energy for.
Yeah.
But while I'm trying to expend the energy He's given me to direct toward my priorities, which is like my marriage, my kids,
Yeah.
anytime that's leaking out and flowing into areas that He didn't ask me to,
Mhm.
that's when I'm like the most tired or
Yeah.
the most like,
Drained.
yeah, just not flowing in between the two. So, yeah, anyways, right now I'm just trying to practice the art of like letting go and not
Mhm.
controlling so much because I just,
Yeah. It's
it's
hard.
coming from a good place. It's coming
Mhm.
from a place of excellence and I want to steward my family well. I'm not frustrated because, oh my gosh, why are they not sleeping longer? Because I wanted
Yeah.
to watch something. And there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that because us moms, we need a break sometimes.
Yes.
But it's like, I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that made sense.
No,
but
it does.
I'm working on it.
No, it
I don't know what to say.
absolutely does. And it's something that I feel like I'm working on in this season as well, because number one, I am like the achiever mindset, and I have to pull myself back from like placing my identity in performance, because
Totally. Yeah.
what's hard about what we do is literally our livelihood sometimes depends on how
Yep.
things perform. And I'm like, oh,
100%.
it's partially why I want to start this podcast. I'm like, I just want something that is just genuinely so fun for me with like no
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
But two, it's like, man, that's not where God has called me to place my identity, like at all. I read this quote the other day, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what we're called to is obedience. Like all I am
Yep.
called to do is obey God. And
Yep.
if he's calling me to something and I'm obedient, then it's up to him if he wants to make that thing
100%.
successful. It does
Yeah.
not, like, the weight is not on my shoulders. And it just
Yes.
like,
Leaving the consequences in his hands, it's like a practice, but it's so freeing
it is.
because it's not up to me.
Yeah. And then back to what you were talking about in terms of like flowing, my friend Nava, who you would adore, you would love
I bet I
Nava.
would.
We are definitely going to have her on the podcast. I'm going to see her very soon.
Yay.
She is a prayer warrior. Okay. Like
I love that.
prayer warrior. She is living in the States right now, but is from Israel. And
Oh, wow.
wow. I mean, like we connected via Instagram, and she was praying. She has a heart for women who can't conceive and praying
Oh,
over
wow.
your womb. And so
Oh, that's powerful.
like literally gonna cry even just like thinking about her. So when we were trying to conceive, she was like very prayerful over me. And it's like we had never even met before. And literally the day before we announced that we were pregnant, she messages me and she's like, Tori, I'm very weary about sharing things like this, but I
Yeah.
literally woke up in the middle of the night last night to the most audible voice of God I've ever heard that said, Tori is pregnant.
No.
And she was like,
Were you so happy to tell her? Like,
oh,
yes,
yes. I told her before I
yes,
literally
God
just
does not
like,
lie.
yes, because she was like, I'm so like, because that's like I mean, that takes courage to like share that with
Oh,
someone who's
yeah.
like trying to have a baby, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And she was like, but I really felt led to like share that with you because it was the craziest experience. Like she was like, I'd literally never heard God like that before.
Wow.
And so when she had messaged me that, I like immediately just responded like with the ultrasound pictures and everything. And we were freaking out. And then a couple
I
months later,
love that.
she literally showed up in my living room, like surprised me, and was in my living room with my friend Melena. And it was just like such a beautiful thing. But long story short, she was just sharing on Instagram how a lot of people ask, because you can just tell like her presence is oozing with the overflow
I
of
love
her
that.
secret place. And
Yeah.
and she was talking about like someone had asked, how do you get into the presence of God, or like how, like what do you do? And
And
she's like, I don't leave the presence of God.
yeah,
And I
so
was like,
good.
I've never really, like, I think about that, right? Where it's like I have my quiet time, my devotion time, and then I
Yeah.
like invite God into my everyday mundane. I'm praying throughout the day and stuff, but I never really
Yeah.
like thought about it that way, where she was like,
Yeah.
I don't leave the presence of God. I
Yeah.
bring the presence of God into everything that I do.
I love
Like
that.
the way I love my husband, the way I steward my children, like
Yeah.
that is my worship. Like my
Yeah.
life is a living
Yeah.
sacrifice. And so in
Yeah.
everything I do, I have the opportunity to bring God's presence and fill this place. And I was just
So
like,
good.
I
So
love the
good.
way you put that. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. It's so powerful. And I think too, like, I don't know, it just, it can be hard to think, especially like I remember messaging you early on in motherhood and was just like, how do you do quiet time? You know, how does this work? Right? Like, because
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
different from when we were
So different.
single, dating, engaged, even early married. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
want to go outside. I want to set the mood. I want to have my Bible, my
Yeah.
journal, my study, like, and it's all laid out and it's so
Yeah.
perfect. And it's
It's
just like,
quiet.
ooh, I got my warm cup of coffee and it's like a
Yes.
beautiful
Yes.
atmosphere. Yeah, that doesn't happen like in my day-to-day life right now
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, I have to be way more strategic about it. And then two, kind of what you were sharing. Okay, if God is inviting me to 5 a.m. prayer, if Micah wakes up at 2 and doesn't go back down till 3:30 like he did this morning, will I wake up at
Yeah.
5 a.m. and meet him in
Yeah.
that secret place so that I can be
Yep.
filled with his presence throughout the day? And that's on
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
it's on me. Like it is my
Yeah.
decision because I was really encouraged by this the other day when it's like, okay, do you want to be close to the Lord? Because the Lord wants to be close to you. Like it is
Yeah.
not for lack of desire on his part to have
Totally.
intimacy with him. And I think that
Yep.
people like don't realize that sometimes, like, or really meditate on the fact that like creator of the universe spoke earth into existence,
Yes.
spoke the universe into existence, like
Yes.
literally wants intimacy with you. And it's up to you if you want it. But it's
Yeah.
like the Bible says, draw unto him and he will draw near to you. And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, it takes an
He's
action
a
on
gentleman.
our, like, he's
Yeah.
not going to come
Yeah.
barging in and be like, let
No.
me in. No, he's like,
Yeah.
he is gentle and he is like, but he's Lord, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
there's that other side of it where it's like, okay, well, what is my cadence with God? Like
Yeah.
in his presence? Like, am I
Yeah.
genuinely like, am I doing devotional time and quiet time because it like is checking off the box of like good Christian woman?
Yeah.
Or am I
Mhm.
like coming into the throne room with the
Yeah.
reverence and the honor and the
Yeah.
respect and the fear of the Lord
Yeah.
that is needed to
Yeah.
like move his heart? You know, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like there's a different posture there because I think that like
Totally.
in this day and age, like, yes, friend of God, we are called friends of God. And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that is a beautiful way to think of it.
Mhm.
But there's also this other side where it's like, yes, but he's like Lord, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
different than like,
Well, and don't you kind of think even like this is just relationships across the board, including friendships. We just don't value people and relationships like maybe we did in the past.
yeah.
So I feel like even the very word friend has been
Mhm.
massively diluted. So
So
then when we hear
true.
we're a friend of God, we just put them into like
We're
what
like,
we
oh,
view as a
great.
friend, which is like we
Mhm.
hang out. We do like there's no
Passing.
depth. Your friends often don't know the dark parts of you.
Yeah.
Like everything is like a portrayal of like, I'm going to curate my life. I'm going
Yeah.
to put it out there. I'm going to meet up with these people.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have good people that you can like be very vulnerable with. But I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, it's like we've cheapened the definition of
Mhm.
husband, wife, friend, like
Yeah.
everything to the point
Yeah.
where, like
Love.
you said, it's like we are a friend of God, but even
Mhm.
like,
What does that mean?
what do we mean by friend even, it's
Yeah.
just a bummer. It's sad, that's for sure.
Dang, that's so good. That's so good. I feel like it's definitely one of those things that people need to like dive into and be like,
Okay.
what is my definition of friend?
Yeah.
What is my definition of Lord? And like I
Yeah.
feel like we so often put our human experiences on
Mm-hmm.
God. You know, I think that's why a lot of people
100%.
like struggle with seeing him as a good father
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a good friend because you've been
Yeah.
hurt, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about this the other day when Chelsea was in town and like you know that you're really close with a friend when you can sit in their presence and be silent. And it's just like
Totally.
you're good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Chelsea and
Mm-hmm.
I, like, we'll be like,
Yeah.
phone break. You know what I mean? Like I gotta like do some
Yeah.
stuff real quick, and then you realize it's been like 2
Yeah.
hours and you haven't said a word, but you're just like enjoying life in their presence, but like you're
Totally.
not communicating, right? And like
Yeah.
I was thinking about that in terms of our relationship with God sometimes because I feel like
Yeah.
I mean I don't like quote unquote hear from God every single day, like
Yeah.
I spend time in his presence every
That
day.
reminds me of something. Remind me to say something after this because I heard
Put a pin in
something the
it.
other day and it was so good.
Oh, okay.
So
Don't forget it.
I won't forget it.
But it's like this idea of people like almost like being upset that God's like invisible. Like, I just want to give him a
Yeah.
hug, right? Like, I just want him to like be
Yeah.
here. But there is like,
Yeah.
there's also beauty in his invisibility because if he was
Yeah.
visible, everyone would serve him, right? Like, it would be so
Totally.
tangible that no
We would have
faith,
no need for faith,
right?
really.
Like,
Yeah.
faith wouldn't need to exist because like we can
Yes.
see how holy and righteous and amazing he is.
Mhm.
But because
Yep.
we can't, there's a beauty in like a stirring and it's just different, right? But it's like,
Totally. 100%.
but I love the friends that I can just like sit in
Yeah.
silence and just enjoy
Yes.
your presence. And we can do that with the
Yeah.
Lord. Like, we don't
Yep.
have to think that we're not close with the Lord because we're not like hearing him every single day.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I even think about Job, where it's like he did not hear from God for like 35 chapters or something like that. But the Lord trusted Job with his silence.
Mhm.
And so it's like,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
okay, pin,
Pin.
going back to the
So,
pin.
okay, because what you just said, I heard something the other day. I feel like it was a YouTube video. I can't recall who it was. I don't think it was a big YouTuber or anyone that I could even recall her name. I
Yeah.
got to go back and find it though.
Yeah.
And she had heard it from someone else. So it's not like I'm going to plagiarize and like use her stuff and not give her
Right.
credit. But she had heard, because I think it was the video like how I study the Bible. And I'm like, oh,
Uh-huh.
fun. Like, I
Yeah.
like to know how everyone, like, what does your time look like? Right. And it's
Absolutely.
also nice as a mom that I can like put a video up in the background and like just have a little bit of a
Absolutely.
change
Yes.
from just an adult's voice.
Yes.
But I know it's going to be pure for my kids. So I'm like, how you
Yes.
study the Bible? Love it. Let's
Perfect.
put it on, girl. But one thing she said was she likened like quiet time and her time in scripture. Like, it would be amazing if God came, like, you know, those days where he like highlights the verse, it
Yes.
jumps out at you. There's revelation. It's like so
Mhm.
exciting.
Yes.
If it was like that every day, we would just be like, we wouldn't be satiated. We'd just be like, we want more, we want more, we want more.
Mhm. Yeah.
And she had heard an analogy, and I'm very much an analogy person.
Yeah.
If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I like everything is
It's
a
the
picture
best.
because that's
Yes.
the way I communicate. That's the way that
I'm a
God shows me
visual
things.
learner, so love a good analogy.
Yeah, I'm like, I need a picture.
Mhm.
But she was saying how, and wherever she heard this, they likened Bible time, scripture time with the Lord to meals. And
Mm.
if you think of your life, there's some meals that maybe you look forward to, like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, right?
Big ol'
It's the
meal.
whole spread. You might not have breakfast in the morning or lunch because you're like, I'm saving up. They're memorable is the whole point. They're memorable meals, or you go to a 5-star restaurant or you're
Yeah.
on vacation and it's like a beautiful view of the ocean. Those are memorable.
Yeah.
Not every meal you eat is going to be memorable, and not every time with God is going to be memorable.
So
But
true.
in the same way that if you just stop eating and wait for memorable meals,
Mm.
you're going to die.
Wow.
Your body will
Wow.
notice if you just stop eating. And it's the same with your spirit, man, and with your spirit. If you just stop reading because
good.
you're waiting for big moments or the conference or Sunday morning,
Yeah.
well, your spirit is going to notice,
Mhm.
whether you notice or you have so many distractions that you don't notice.
Yeah.
Your spirit's going to slowly die because you're not
Yeah.
feeding it. And so that was
Wow.
just kind of the encouragement to, like, as amazing as the big moments are with God and like
Yeah.
the ones where you're like, this is amazing. I think what you said was key, where enter it with expectancy. Like, I'm going to get something, but also enter
Yeah.
to serve and just be like, I'm here for myself to feed myself. I'm
Yeah.
also here to like give you glory, to make
Yes.
sure that I remember your
Who you
rightful
are.
place.
Right.
You don't need to
Exactly.
remember, like, you know where you are, but
He
I need to
knows.
remember, like, oh, you're up here, problem, everything else below.
Yep.
But I just love that analogy of
Yeah.
like, you can't just wait for the memorable meals to eat or
Mm.
you're going to die. And it's the same with God. Like, if you are on the streak of, I don't hear from him,
Mhm.
keep showing up because you're still feeding yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeding yourself, your spirit's going to die. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've been in seasons where I'm like,
My
I'll
spirit's
wake up
dying.
one day and I'm like, my spirit's dying.
Yeah.
And it's like
I need
critical.
it.
Like the
Critical
lights are blaring and I'm
yes.
like,
Yep.
I need to like,
Yeah.
I got to go like
Yeah.
get in the word. I got to do something. So that
Oh,
was one thing I thought of.
well, that in itself is very memorable, and I feel like we could literally keep talking for forever, and we will 100% have you back on the podcast. I feel like if you're cool with
Yeah.
it, you're just
I
gonna be
love
a
it.
regular because every conversation I have with you is
Yeah.
inspiring, and I know that
I
the
love
people
it.
listening or encouraged. But I love you. And before we hop off, will you just tell the people where they can follow you? And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Instagram, as most people are. I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram at Brittany Lutz. And then I have a podcast called Embraced with Grace, and you can listen to that anywhere you listen to podcasts. And then I just started kind of posting on YouTube, but we'll see what happens. I don't have the beautiful setup that you do, but that's what God's calling me to do right now. He goes, I need to see your face while you speak. But the thing is, this is like a sidebar, but maybe this will encourage someone.
Yes.
I have an idea in my mind of what I think something should look like. And what he's doing is like the active obedience is like, no, you need to do it, even though it doesn't look the way you think it should, because it's not about what it looks like. It's about what I'm telling you to say in your obedience.
So true. It's
so good. If God's telling you to do something,
we always say delayed obedience is still disobedience.
It's disobedience. Yep.
And so I've learned the hard way with that one, and I don't want to learn that lesson again.
I think we all have. Oh, but I love you so much. This was great. Maybe next time, just throwing it out there in faith, we'll be sitting in the same room. Maybe we take a trip to Florida. The babies can play, and we can like podcast in the same state, the same room.
I would love nothing more.
Putting it out there in faith.
I would love nothing more. Well, y'all make sure if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. Thank Brittany for joining and make sure to subscribe, etc. But we'll be seeing you guys next Tuesday at 2. Thank you guys for listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, this first episode of Talks with Tori. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that you did too. If you did, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, share with your friend, and we will be seeing you guys back next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And I also just want to mention there is going to be a link in the description below to sign up for our email list. And I'm just going to tell you guys that you're not going to want to miss it, especially come December. There's a little something cooking, and you'll just know more if you sign up for the emails. So anyways, that link will be below. Make sure to also, if you feel led, to rate this podcast. That way more people can find it. That would be very much appreciated on my end. But yeah, I love you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 2.